that is one thing where I think regulation may be useful. What are you teaching beginners? How are you teaching beginner students? And if people are coming to all level classes, how is it all levels if you're offering a very advanced practice? And, you know, I've had a number of students say to me they felt quite alienated after they've gone to a yoga class, and they felt like they couldn't go back to yoga because it's too hard for them. And that makes me feel very sad, because I want to say, well, that's not actually true. You can take it back. And so that's just something I wanted to say in terms of, I think we do a disservice to our students to assume that everybody's there for fitness. I think we do a disservice to ourselves as teachers to teach to that only. And I think that in terms of regulation, one thing we could look at is structure for beginner classes and what's being, I'm not saying every program isn't doing that. I'm not trying to be accusatory. I'm just saying from my observation, I see a lack of clarity in terms of all, in particular, all levels classes. What does that mean? Who is it being taught to?
It sounds like you're not speaking about regulation now in terms of who's teaching, but then now on a structural level of what are those studios out there doing? Well,
yeah, because if you're a teacher, and this is how you've been, I mean, I've taken a few teacher training programs down. In my first one, I came out of it, and I had to teach a group of seniors. They were my first class, and the type of training that I did not entirely prepare me for that. But I tried to research on my own and etc. But then having taken another training program that did prepare me to teach in a number of different situations, I feel that there is, you know, kind of different streams of things being offered. And maybe you can be specific. Say we offer a training program that trains you to teach fitness yoga to healthy young people who have no physical issues. But that's more honest, because, you know, when I graduated from my first program, I looked at a room of 70-year-old people and thought, what am I going to do here? Like, what do I do? I want to be able to offer yoga to these people, but what I've been taught doesn't give me enough to work with. And I do believe that there are training programs that do that. And I think it would be more beneficial for more teachers to be having options to teach people who aren't interested in fitness, who aren't fit to start with, who maybe have mobility issues, who have injuries, who, you know, there's lots of people in Toronto who aren't fit and who are facing a variety of things, and do we just say, well, you can't come, or if you come you might feel alienated, or if you come we have no modifications to offer you because we ourselves have never been taught that,
or if you come we'll kill you?
Yes, or if you come we will kill you if you ask us to. Yeah, so I don't know, it's just like I might have opened up a can of worms there, but that I feel strongly that with beginner students we should be offering them a practice that is accessible to them, and that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a can of worms. I think it opens another side of of standards, which is what are the institutions called studios doing?
Yeah.
Not necessarily what are people teaching.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas as to what that might look? What would you like? I mean, would you like to be able to attend an all levels class in any studio in Toronto and know that certain protocols were followed?
I think all levels to me means all levels.
Okay.
It doesn't mean an advanced class dressed up as all levels so anyone can come who happens to be free at that time slot.
Okay, so then structurally, how would we, if that was a desire that we all shared, mm-hmm. right? How would we encourage that to happen? I think that's what we're talking about through these discussions. How would we encourage that to happen?
I think within teacher training programs, you have to have more options offered in terms of what you're in terms of what you're teaching your teachers and how to modify. Like, just from what I've seen, and not as a criticism of any place in particular, but it seems like maybe there's not enough focus on how to do that, how to structure it. And it's a very big challenge. Like, as a teacher, it's hard to have a student who's been practicing for 6 years who really wants to do something and they're working in their own level, and then have a student who's coming for the first time. Everyone in this room, I'm sure, has faced that situation. But there is a way that you can teach to both of those people, keep them safe, and have them enjoy the practice. And I think if you're able to give people, teachers, the tools to do that, you're doing a service to the teacher and the students they teach, as opposed to just sort of assuming that everybody is going to be able to do certain things, which I feel there's a bit of an assumption of that within studio culture, or a bit of a focus on fitness and healthy bodies that is sort of leaving out certain members of the population that I would like to see, and that I do see included in yoga in different studio settings. And so I don't know. I don't want to say there's a certain particular way to do it, but for me it comes down to, what are you teaching beginner students? And if you have a beginner student come to an all levels class, are they actually being taught as a beginner?
Yeah. So is this all into the category of how can YTT improve, and this general sense that I think a lot of us have, that maybe we should call 200 hours grade school, and that modules for specific populations would be a wonderful add-on,
Sure.
or something like that? Okay.
My name's Crescence Kruger. Just picking up on what you were saying, for me the question that is being asked is, what is yoga? Because if you only understand yoga as physical fitness, then that is not a full understanding of yoga, and it's not going to allow you to actually be teaching yoga. And I think for me, I think that's why I'm here, is that I feel there isn't in the general culture an understanding of what yoga is. Yeah.
If I can speak to a part of what you're talking about, my name's Scott Petrie, and I teach the philosophy component of the teacher training programs at several studios. And when I first began, that component was 35 hours on average, in some cases 40 hours. I've seen each year that number slowly be whittled down. You know, this year I'm teaching maximum 15 hours of philosophy, and we'll be teaching 10 hours for the first time in a program starting soon. I know full well that the students that I'm graduating in that component are not able to teach the philosophy of yoga, let alone read or write Sanskrit, or dive deeply into any texts, or significant history. But my concern is, who will be teaching the philosophy of yoga 20 or 30 years down the road? If we are graduating everyone, okay, if I'm around in 20 or 30 years. But the truth is,
Yeah, for 5 minutes at a time.
we talk
Just
a
look
lot
at
about
pictures of you. Yeah.
I'll be on the web anyways. But the truth is, we talk a lot about standardization, and the conversation always comes back to asana, to physical injury, to defining therapy versus athleticism. But what about some of the other central tenets of yoga? Right? What is happening to our standards in philosophy? What is happening to the standards in anatomy, in the wide range of facets of yoga that are often not even included in Yoga Alliance standardization or a regular teacher training program, that make up this tradition, and that also make you an able teacher and a skilled teacher when teaching asana. And if we're graduating people who are not well trained in these aspects, where are they getting their graduate training from? And if they're not getting graduate training, what's going to happen to the tradition 20 or 30 years down the road? When everyone is very able to teach asana, and no one is really able to teach what the asana means anymore.
Thank you, Scott. That was needed very much. I'm just going back to, before losing the thought on the regulation, This is a subject that has been quite in the background, but very much focused in India. If one could say the base of yoga, if you wish. Pranayama is just what everyone here in the room knows, and I'm probably the diaper stage. Pranayama, Bhastrika Kapalbhati, which requires the movement of the abdomen as well as the chest, is like a pneumatic drill. And while we're not talking about asanas, that is true, the injuries from asanas maybe may not be there, but the pranayama, the risks associated with that is that, at least in Ontario, in Toronto, until about recently, there was only one person in the entire city of Toronto, entire GTA, who would be in a position, Shri Balasingham, if there was any pranic disturbance, to know what to do with it. There are at least 3 people in Toronto alone who have been injured, and I've known Ma Bharati from Taipei 9 years. When she would sit, she still sits like a marble statue. But if you sit behind her, her vein throbs, because she was injured. And the person, 50 years of teaching or 40 years of teaching, 35 certificates, was not in a position to take care of the pranic disturbance. And that is the risk. I think the lady what they mentioned about the regular, it's not just the injury from asanas, which is chiropractors and doctors are beginning to notice these things, the spines, etc. But there's also the risk of the lack of knowledge, not because they're teaching incorrectly. And those, how it is handled in India, and I was coming back to that point, peer pressure, or peer review, if you wish, not pressure. When, I shouldn't take names, and I'm very bad at that, but when Baba Ramdev started this whole mass media, if you wish, mass millions of people being taught yoga, his initial DVDs talked about Bhastrika Prana and Kapalbhati, advanced stage, Olympic stage, with people spent 20, 30 years to reach that stage, and he's teaching it to housewives, grandmothers. Yes. Well, no, what happened was, Scott, that the Mahamandaleshwars got together and sent him a message. Babaji, it's fine for you to, well, they didn't say make money, but it's fine for you to make yourself known and popularize this, but you cannot, it is doing yourself injustice to, through your DVDs, to talk about Kapalbhati, where my mother was 98 of his age, and she would say, I can do it. And people like me say, you can't. Even if you can do it, don't. So he removed it. He removed it. The second part, which is a bit more controversial, when we saw the documentary Yoga Unveiled, the beginning was superb, I made the comment, but near the end, I spoke to Geeta Ji, I spoke to her the other day, she's going to come to Toronto again. The second part, this is a very controversial statement, please forgive me if I'm out of line. The second half of this documentary was on those traditions, particularly in the South, which have reduced in the last 50, 60, 100 years into physicality. The physical part more so than what Scott is referring to. The asana means the seat of meditation. So then the peer pressure did not work as much. The Swami Rama Himalayas and others and people from the north did try to change that, if you wish, the focus on the physicality, but they didn't succeed. And that's where the conclusion is that somebody like an organization like YOCOTO, I don't know what's happening to Foyt, but YOCOTO could play such an important role, such a dominant role in the city of GTA at least, through exactly what you're doing, maybe not flyers, like the Foyt used to have the magazines, publications, to point out, not to criticize the studio or others who say, leave us alone, we'll do whatever we want to do, but through reviews and through suggestions that, look, there are certain things that need not be attempted. Government is not going to regulate how you do Bhastrika Pranayama or Kapalbhati. Believe me, they're not. So it is the peer pressure. And that's where I think YOCOTO can play such a beautiful role.
I'm glad you said beautiful and not dominant that second time. That was good. Oh, is this a slower process if I stand up? If I yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, good. It worked.
My name's Rosemary Jean Zansa, and I think there are a lot of really important issues being raised here, and